issue is the true nature of man.
Every single young person in this country is a potential recruit to the new nation. Everybody recognizes that music was the first expression of the culture. You can see kind of other things coming into the culture, helping to define it. We now have some martyrs. Timothy Leary, in jail for spreading benevolent herbs. We have John Sinclair in jail for 10 years for 2 joints.
Either man is a creature whom the psalmist described as a little lower than the angels, crowned with glory and honor, holding dominion over the works of his Creator, or man is a soulless, animated machine to be enslaved, used, and consumed.
There must be an end to the violent disruption of the campus, and the end must begin now.
American units will attack the headquarters for the entire communist military operation, but we will not be humiliated. We will not be defeated.
CS is a more recently developed tear-producing agent which causes more severe irritation to the eyes, to the nose, and to the respiratory tract. It's usually accompanied by pains in the chest, choking, and nausea.
Each time we go into the streets, they test some new piece of technology upon us. Last week it was cars spewing pepper fog from their exhausts.
We have ruled out attempting to impose a purely military solution.
We will not react to this threat to American lives merely by plaintive diplomatic protests. If we did, the credibility of the United States would be destroyed.
The campus, meanwhile, has the 3rd largest police force in the whole county. The leaves are beginning to wilt from the tear gas.
This is not an invasion.
So that it looks like they're trying again for military victory. And that has completely freaked out those elements of the ruling class, or those liberals in this country who thought that we were getting out of Vietnam. That's what they thought we were doing. They believed Vietnamization. Because they ain't going to be able to get us out of Vietnam.
This attitude has become intolerable.
The area of immediate concern is the academic community. But what is happening there is happening to all of us. In our state, a half dozen have died from bomb and gun. Others have been maimed and blinded. And so it was in Ohio. And 4 young people are dead. It's possible they weren't even participants in the trouble. But death isn't very selective when the violence of a mob is confronted by the force necessary to contain it. Go to your homes. Take the next 4 days to review all that's happened. See if there isn't a better way than going on with the torch and the club until, as surely as the sun rises, there are more Kent universities, probably in California.
I regret the necessities of war have compelled us to bomb North Vietnam. We have carefully limited those raids. They have been directed at radar stations, bridges, and ammunition dumps, not at population centers. They've been directed at concrete and steel, and not human life. I understand the feelings of those who regret that we must undertake our attacks. I share those feelings. But the compassion of this country and the world must go out to the men and women and children who are killed and crippled by the Viet Cong every day in South Vietnam.
Closing the campuses is not in any way giving in to those who preach and practice violence. Let me assure you that any resort to violence or destruction, any illegal individual or mob action, will be dealt with firmly and immediately. Surely it should be obvious by now that this state has the collective law enforcement strength to deal with such disturbances. And those who engage in such acts will not be able to fade away into the crowds of curious. They'll not be able to hide behind the innocent.
For eons of time, we have believed that there resides in the bosom of America decency. And there is no decency because you have proven that you live a lie. We believe that there was such a thing as justice, and there is no justice if you're a black man, or if you are part of the poor white who inhabit and infest the American earth. But we are determined that America will be a better America if it means that there are those of us who must die. Better to die at home in the search of renewal and to rescue the democratic promise in a sick land reeked with madness than to die on a rice paddy in Vietnam.
This attitude towards violence isn't what makes it revolutionary. What makes it revolutionary is a certain understanding of social reality, a certain analysis of the structure of life, you know, a dedication to changing that structure. And that's what we have to talk to people about. We have to talk to them about how this culture gobbles up and eats up any culture which it finds, you know, different from it. The way it gobbled up and ate up Indian culture, the way it tried to gobble up black culture, the way it's trying to gobble up youth culture in this country. And we have to try to convince them, you know, that, like, in fact, you shouldn't try to get us out of Asia and save the system at the same time. What you should try to do is to get us out of Asia and change the system.
If we are forced to, hear me, if we are forced to, we will engage in guerrilla warfare in the steel and concrete canyons of America's great cities. Do you hear me? We will no longer submit to your inhumanity in the name of democracy. You are on trial today, America.
My fellow Americans, we live in an age of anarchy, both abroad and at home. We see mindless attacks on all the great institutions which have been created by free civilizations in the last 500 years. Even here in the United States, great universities are being systematically destroyed. Small nations all over the world find themselves under attack from within and from without. If, when the chips are down, the world's most powerful nation, the United States of America, acts like a pitiful, helpless giant, the forces of totalitarianism and anarchy will threaten free nations and free institutions throughout the world.
We teach young blacks that first they must be organized. We must understand the correct methods by which to resist the power structure. We also teach black people that it's not necessary to go out and work on the scale of rock and bottle operations, but that in fact the police occupy our community like a foreign troop occupies territory. And if our community is overtly invaded, then we should be able to learn how to run in small groups of threes and fours and be able to defend ourselves from door to door, from house to house, from block to block against invasion and attack on the part of the police. Over 250 black rebellions have occurred, riots, spontaneous on the part of the people. And of course, we know that it's directly in opposition to the decadent, oppressive conditions that black people are subjected to in the black community. We don't believe in riots, one, because of this historical experience. That historical experience showed us that the only thing that happens when a spontaneous riot breaks out is that thousands of black people are arrested, 25 or 50 are killed, 150 or 200 are wounded.
The Black Panthers are the children of white racism. It is impossible to destroy them, even though 28 of them have died as martyrs in the last 18 months. They will rise again in numbers extending into the thousands and the hundreds of thousands.
I believe in the inevitability of the insurrection. I believe in the inevitability of the clash between the pig nation versus the black nation and our nation, you know? Whether you should be a weatherman or whether you should go out and grow stuff in the countryside. I mean, that's beside the point. As a new people, what we need farmers, we need warriors, we need poets, we need comedians, we need strategists, we need movie makers, we need everything.
Coming, sky turning black, the missiles sulk in their cages. The green net of the ocean grows dangerous thin. The terrorism of bombs begins. The Minutemen multiply their bunkers. The economy chokes and staggers. The blacks grow yet more desperate. The war is coming home. I figure I'm likely to die in this decade, perhaps in this city I love, down the street, beyond the neighborhood garden, in some warm summer twilight when people sit on their porches and the joy of live music drifts out from their windows. Do you mind if I finger my intimate fragments in front of you, awkwardly? I can't fit them together.